Welcome back to Just Fantasy Baseball. Today we're going to be talking about starting pitchers. I'm your host, Colby Olson, as always, joined by Clay Snowden over here. We've been talking offense for this entire podcast. We haven't even gotten into pitchers yet. Pitchers are pitcher research, that is kind of what I've always been interested in. I'm a pitcher myself, so it's always fun to talk about, this crop of fantasy pitchers. Today, we're going to be breaking down the top 10, which, as you could guess, is obviously loaded. And I don't even think, Clay, we're going to be breaking past ADP 50 on this list. Like, all of these guys are potential aces on your squad.
Yeah, the top 10 is super deep, super deep.
Yeah, I mean, pitching as a whole is usually incredibly deep in fantasy. So kind of like what the audience should expect over the next, week and a half is this week we're going to be talking about the top 10 on today's episode. Then this next episode, which should be coming out either Thursday or Friday, we're going to be breaking down, 11 through 20 on the ADP board. And that should get us to right around like ADP 100, I would hope. So then we're going to talk about, our sleepers after that. And then we'll definitely do a, relief pitcher closer episode as well beyond that. And Clay, before we know it here, we're going to be getting to the season really, really fast. I mean, we're what, less than a month away now. We got baseball coming up on what's opening day, March 30th. Is that correct?
Yep.
March 30th. So, really we're almost, 3 weeks away. A little over 3 weeks away from real baseball being played. It's exciting times, man. It really is exciting times. So shall we just break right into it?
Let's go.
Let's go. All right. Let's talk pitchers. I think to start, off the bat, it's Shohei Ohtani, but it's such a weird thing because he's not the best starting pitcher in baseball and he's being drafted as the best, but it's not because he only pitches. And that's why he's, arguably the number one overall pick in your fantasy league. His ADP is kind of all over the place. When you look at his ADP, it's ADP 7, 8. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So I guess, Clay, I think my first question to you before I even break into what Shohei Ohtani has done on the mound, how many leagues actually have him as a starting pitcher only these days?
I don't know about that as only a starting pitcher, but he can only play one or the other whenever he's pitching. So if he's pitching, you cannot have him in your lineup for most leagues as a DH or something along those lines. So,
gotcha.
The value there's a little bit interesting. He dominates points leagues, obviously. Usually the number one pick in a points league just because of, the ability to pitch and hit both at an extremely high level.
Yeah, I don't really see why you wouldn't take him first overall really in any league, if that makes sense, right? Just to give you an idea of how good he's been on the mound. He was a 3.4 WAR hitter last year, Clay. That's just as a hitter. As a pitcher, he had 6 WAR. He almost doubled his hitting WAR as a pitcher last year. And I feel like when people think about Shohei Ohtani, I think they definitely acknowledge how good of a pitcher he is. And but I feel like people don't almost grasp how good of a pitcher he is. He really is a top 5 pitcher in baseball. I could argue him being top 3. I could argue we're just baseball as a website is releasing its top 20, top 30 pitchers in baseball list later this week. Just Baseball Show is going to be talking about it. And just from an actual real life pitching example, Shohei Ohtani could be number 2 on that list, in my opinion. But yeah, just to go a little bit deeper, he threw 166 innings last year, which was a career high. That's a big step for him. He had the 3rd lowest xERA and FIP in baseball. And the interesting thing for Ohtani has always been his pitch mix because he throws a lot of different pitches. But last year he increased his slider usage, which was good to see. He basically used that as his primary pitch. Threw his slider about 38% of the time, mixed in 4-seam fastballs behind that, and then mixed in the splitter, which is just ridiculous, has close to a 50% whiff rate on that pitch. And the big thing for me was that he stopped throwing that cutter. And this was something that I wrote about a long time ago. I didn't like Ohtani's cutter. It gets lit up and he throws it in my opinion, for no reason. Maybe it's to keep hitters off balance off of his fastball. I don't know. To me, it doesn't really do anything for him. But beyond that, too, he had the second highest K rate in baseball behind Rodon. So Ohtani is a beast, and should be the first pitcher off the board, even though he's not really just a pitcher. I guess my question to you, Clay, as well is, we saw 166 innings last year. Projection systems have him this year. I don't even know what they have him slated for. I'm looking right now. But like, how many innings can he get to in your mind? Like, what are you projecting him at?
I don't see why there's any reason why he can't do this exact same amount. Now, at some point, you have to ask, like, is he ever going to dial one back? Like, it just seems like a player doing this much in, offensively and pitching. Like, you can't do that forever, right? But then again, there's so few people ever to be as talented as Shohei Ohtani that I don't really know where the limit is.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you can't do it forever, but when you're 28 years old and you're in your athletic prime, this is a guy that takes care of his body, better than just about anybody. I don't see any reason why he can't. I think the other thing too is like, it takes a lot out of him to hit every day. And he's active on the base paths, but he is DH, right? It's not like he's playing in the field every single inning. He does get a breather. But it just is still freakishly insane that he's able to do both. I still can't really fathom it and be as good as he is at both. All right, let's move on to number 2, because I feel like this is actually where we can start talking about like guys that are just pitchers. It's so hard to talk about Ohtani. I don't even know how to really do it in fantasy, right? It's just so hard. Like doing both.
We probably talk too much about Ohtani. Like
maybe we do.
So
he's fun to talk about, and he's a freak. So Corbin Burnes is such an interesting guy to start with, I think, because he had such an up and down season, right? He had an ERA in the low 2s to start the year, Clay. Then in the second half, he posts a 3.97 ERA, completely balloons, right? Which is so surprising. And I was looking, like, I went and looked and I saw this terrible ERA. And I'm like, there has to be a reason behind it, right? Like maybe his K rate dipped, which it did very slightly, but it's not something that I'm worried about. And I couldn't find anything else that made me believe that, that Corbin Burnes isn't the guy still that in 2021 had a 2.43 ERA, a 1.63 FIP, won the NL Cy Young. In 2020, he was just as dominant, right? So, like, I don't think anybody's really looking into that 3.97 ERA in the second half. And I don't think anybody should, because I just don't see a reason why that wasn't random.
No, and this is a guy who's 3 straight years of an ERA under 3, and the past 2 years, 230 plus strikeouts. He pretty much does everything well. Like, there's no reason that I would ever be concerned. There's some rumors or rumblings about him potentially getting moved because of his contract situation, or he was upset with arbitration. And I don't see that happening, honestly. A lot would have to go wrong with the Brewers for that to happen. But this is a guy who kind of changed up his pitch mix, I believe, going into 2020, when he stopped using the 4-seamer as much and really went to a cutter. And we see that a lot with pitchers. We see as they grow up and as they get more experienced, changing their pitch mix, changing what they use as often, and kind of fine-tuning their craft to figure out what works best for them. And right now, I think he's just right where he needs to be in his ADP, and a guy that I would definitely target as my first pitcher selected if I go with a bat in the first round.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you bring up the cutter, and it's almost unfair to call what he throws a cutter because it's at like 97. But yeah, you're right, Clay. It was interesting to see how he changed up his repertoire. And probably my last point on Burnes is that he took that necessary step that I want to see guys like Strider take, guys like even Ohtani take, where in 2021 he threw 167 innings. It's always like, is that kind of it? Are you only going to be that 5 to 6 inning guy? Can you take the next step? And Burnes did. Like, say what you want about the second half ERA. He threw 202 innings with a 2.94 ERA. Like, pretty impressive stuff for him to take that leap and throw over 200 innings. So I'm hoping he can do that again this year. All right, Clay, let's talk about Gerrit Cole, because Gerrit Cole is a pitcher that is so much better than the way he performs. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, because he'll have like a blow up game every once in a while, and it just kind of puts the sour taste in your mouth about him. And I know that a lot of owners in fantasy get mad at him, and you can always tell. And you see the Yankees fans tweeting about it once every couple months when there's just a terrible outing by Gerrit Cole. But overall, I mean, he's still going to strike out around 11 per nine, and he doesn't really walk a lot of batters. And his ERA has crept up a little bit each of the past 3 years, but last year was still 3.50. And I'm not exactly worried about that. I've
Yeah, I
never
mean,
actually had him on a fantasy team.
actually, this is a buy spot for Gerrit Cole. Like
Yeah.
last year, you couldn't find Gerrit Cole going outside the top 10 in most leagues. Like most places, he was going as a top 10 pick. This year, yeah, coming off of a 3.5 ERA, like, yeah, people kind of do have a sour taste in their mouth. And it's not like he was that good in 2021, but he had a 3.23 ERA. Like he hasn't had a season since 2019 that's really made people go, wow, Gerrit Cole is that like top pitcher in baseball, which he can be, but he struggles with giving up too many home runs. Like he's never had in 3 of the last 4 seasons, he's had a home run per fly ball rate over 16%, which for a guy as good as he is, like he just should not have a home run per fly ball rate that high. But regardless of the ERA, like this is why I think he's a buy, because whether he gives you an ERA in the twos or not, he led the league in strikeouts last year. He's going to have a low whip. Like he provides value in every other category. And I believe that he will improve on that ERA. Like he's really gotta. The expected numbers are there. If he gets rid of some of these blow up starts where he gives up 7 earned runs and, like 4 home runs in the same game, like it's ridiculous. Some of the blow up starts that Gerrit Cole has. So he just needs to, dial it in just a little bit. All right, moving on.
Gerrit Cole, king of the excuses too. He loves excuses, doesn't he?
He's kind of a
Always in the
crybaby
news
on the
for
mound.
something.
And it's so weird. I'm a Red Sox fan, and I don't know why, but I kind of love Gerrit Cole. Like I just have like a soft spot for him because he's so good, and I just want him to be that good. And yet he has these starts that just make me lose my mind. And the Red Sox always give him trouble. Always. Rafael Devers, I think, has a lifetime 350 batting average off of Gerrit Cole. So yeah, he's kind of a head case a little bit. Sandy Alcantara, Clay, is an interesting guy too. Every guy on this list is going to be interesting. I'm going to say that for every guy. But it's interesting to me that he's being taken ADP 30 right now, coming off of, one of the better fantasy pitching seasons in a while. He threw 228 and 2/3 innings, which led the league by a wide margin. Aaron Nola was second with like 205 innings. Like he really paced the league. And he had an ERA in the low 2s. I mean, it was just a sick season. And the peripherals will tell you that there's going to be regression. And yeah, I mean, maybe there will be regression, but his FIP, xERA were still all in the 2s. So I don't know. I feel like Sandy's price is actually pretty good where it's at.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people, when you're talking about top 5 pitchers in the MLB, they want somebody who's going to strike people out. And he will put up a decent amount of strikeouts, but he's not a strikeout artist by any means. He doesn't get any run support. He had one of the lowest run supports last year, but still cranked out a good amount of wins for a team that's, not exactly great. And I like him a lot, even if there is some, I guess, regression back to what would probably be the mean with him. Still a pitcher that I would be willing to target.
Yeah, I mean, he has the most innings pitched since 2019 in baseball. He has 4 pitches. What I love about Sandy is he has 4 pitches, and he uses each pitch around 25% of the time. So you really can't like expect one thing from him. He's also a ground ball pitcher. And to kind of combat the elite K, like he doesn't have elite Ks. He's never going to. He's never struck out, more than 9 per 9. But he gives you everything else, right? He's going to give you a ton of innings. He had a sub-1 whip last year. I think it's a pretty trustworthy profile. Like I think the floor for Sandy is like a 3 ERA. I would be shocked if he had above a 3 ERA, honestly. All right, we're changing gears, Clay. We're going from Sandy Alcantara, who's a complete workhorse, to Spencer Strider, who might be the most electric pitcher in baseball. I don't know. Is that fair to say? I really think so.
He has, yeah. I mean, the sample size is still small when you compare to everyone else on the list, but yeah, I mean, he definitely has the potential to establish himself as that.
I mean, the dude struck out 38% of batters last year, right? I need to take away the relief appearances because it's almost not fair. But let's see what he was as a starter, strikeout wise. Should have this prep, but it's okay. The listeners can come along for the ride. Yeah, I mean, dude, he actually struck out more batters per 9 innings as a starter than as a reliever. He's ridiculous. What makes Spencer Strider so, I want to say generational, because it's a big change for pitchers. We haven't really seen a guy that only throws 2 pitches be this good before. He's fastball and slider, and that's it. The fastball is ridiculous, has a ton of rising action, and it's not actually rising action, right? It's just that ability to spin the baseball optimally so that it doesn't sink as much, right? Batters miss it, but it's at 98 to 101 miles an hour. And then you have to cheat on that fastball. So then you're not going to catch up, or you're not going to expect the slider at 86 miles an hour. And the slider, by the way, Clay, it had a 52% whiff rate last year. That was the 5th highest whiff rate of any pitch in baseball, starters and relievers. Like, he is legitimately a closer going 6 to 7 innings.
Yeah, he's been absolutely fantastic. And 2.67 ERA as a rookie is unbelievable. 1.83 FIP. And like you say, he's going to be the guy who's going to bring a ton of strikeouts. Another player, I know we've said this a lot on this show, but another player I think is going to get drafted early. A lot of people are going to want him on his team, on their team. And, he's going to jump. I think Jacob deGrom is right around the same ADP. And he's going to get taken before deGrom in my eyes, and maybe even before Sandy, just depending on your league and how aggressive people want to be. That's just a player people want on their team.
Yeah, and let me tell you, I just was gushing over Spencer Strider, and I'm here to tell you that I think I'm out on him this year in fantasy. Just at this price, I think it's too high. Going in the top 35 as a guy that's, he threw 131 innings last year. I just question, can he make that leap to 170? Is he going to be a 140, 150 inning guy? Because if that's the case, he's really going to have to perform. He's going to have to put up a 2 ERA to really, give you the value of his draft price.
Everybody else on this list surrounding him, above and below him, has multiple pitches, is a veteran who's been through it. He is the outlier there. And that's why I agree with you. It's not that I wouldn't want him on my team, but at that price, it's just really hard for me to select a guy who has 2 proven pitches, 1 year under his belt with not a ton of innings. It's just I think he's going to be great. And I know I will probably regret not drafting him, but I would rather go with somebody else.
Yeah, totally, man. I mean, it's a tough precedent because he really was the most dominant pitcher. He was deGrom level dominant when on the mound last year, which is a very rare thing to say. And I guess the precedent for a 2-pitch guy is, I mean, Christian Javier is as well, but Jacob deGrom actually has turned into a 2-pitch guy himself, right? For the most part, deGrom is fastball, slider, and almost almost all fastball. Like at times last year, he was only throwing fastballs. So that's a good segue into talking about deGrom, because when he's on the mound, Jacob deGrom is the best pitcher in baseball, and I would even dare to say the best pitcher I've ever seen throw a baseball. Like, is that fair? When Jacob deGrom is at his best, when he's healthy on the mound, I don't know if there's many pitchers that have ever stepped on the mound in baseball history that are as good as Jacob deGrom. And that might sound crazy. I don't think it is.
He's playing on rookie, right? Like, he is that good on the mound. That's the problem, though, is being on the mound. In another situation where he's going top 30, do you want to use a top 30 draft pick on a player who has dealt with a lot of injuries? And I don't. And this is why I haven't drafted him in the past. I would love to sit down and watch a Jacob deGrom game knowing he's on my team and knowing I'm about to get all kinds of stats. Just sit back and enjoy it. But how often does that happen? 5, 8 times a summer? Like, not enough.
Jacob deGrom, 64 innings pitched last year. He was dealing with a shoulder blade injury. Before that, he dealt with an elbow injury. He's dealt with shoulder injuries. He's dealt with lat injury. He's dealt with every injury that you could possibly deal with. Like, I don't know what's left for Jacob deGrom to deal with. And then he comes into spring training this year and is already feeling, I don't know if it was just like tightness or soreness or something. I don't think it was anything serious, but it's like, those little nagging injuries seem to blow up into erupting volcanoes for Jacob deGrom usually. He's, like I said, 64 innings last year, 92 innings in 2021. A guy that threw 200 innings in 3 straight seasons from 2017 to 2019, and now he just cannot stay on the field. He's entering his age 35 season. It's just a tough profile to pick. The question I'm going to ask you, though, Clay, he's so good when he's on the mound that at ADP 33, say you get him a little lower than that because people just don't want him. Say he's at pick 45, right? How many innings in your brain are you like accepting? I'm not trying to say predict how many innings he's going to throw this year. I'm trying to say, like, how many
What's
innings?
the threshold, right?
What makes it worth it?
Yeah. I mean, you have to get.
Is it 130?
I'm not using a top 100. I'm not using a top 30 or 40 pick on a player who's going to be pitching less than 100 innings as a starter.
Yeah, I think if I get 130 innings out of Jacob deGrom, like, if I could guarantee that, I would probably pick him where he's going.
Yeah.
But I think that's a big if. Even that is a big if, which is crazy.
Yeah. I don't even know. You would have to go back pretty far to get 130 combined innings over the past couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, he has 150 combined over the last 2 years.
Okay.
So, yeah. He had a 1.08 ERA in 2021, Clay.
And he could swing the bat back then.
That 2021 season, I'm not kidding you. That 2021 season would have been the best pitching season ever.
Yeah, he was on pace for that.
For sure on pace for that. Like, insane. We gotta get one more Jacob deGrom healthy season. With that said, I think we're both staying away.
Yep.
All right. Aaron Nola time, baby. Aaron Nola, a guy that has been up and down throughout his entire career. One season he has an amazing ERA. The next season he's the unluckiest pitcher. He has a 4+ ERA with great FIP numbers and expected numbers. But the thing with Aaron Nola has always been command. When he's commanding his fastball and commanding his changeup, he can be one of the best pitchers in baseball. And that's exactly what he did last season, Clay. So going by Command Plus, which is a stat from MLB Pitch Profiler.com. They have a model that calculates that. It's pretty cool. It's my guy Jeremy Machino. Go follow him on Twitter. Good profile. Guy knows his pitching. So he calculates Command Plus. Aaron Nola was in the 95th percentile last year, right? Not only does Aaron Nola have, good whiff ability on his fastball, on his changeup, on his curveball, but when he's locating it, he can be one of the best pitchers in baseball, and that's exactly what he was last year. And that's the big reason that he had a career low home run per fly ball rate last year. I really believe that. I mean, like, you can say that, maybe like a pretty weak baseball could have helped that as well. But yeah, Nola's a guy with a low whip every year, good K numbers, a lot of innings, like across the board. It's just, you're getting a lot of good stats. What do you think though? Because I know
love
he's a
him.
guy that's up and down at times.
I love him. And I don't think the up and down, I know what you mean. And I hear this from everyone. I think that's a little bit dramatic. The narrative there. I don't think it's as bad as people have made it sound. This isn't Jose Barreras or up and down, up and down. Like, this is a guy who's going to get 11K per nine, less than 2 walks, expected ERA of 2.74 last year. Actual ERA was 3.25, and not a flamethrower, but as you mentioned, he has 4 pitches that he can throw extremely, extremely well. I love him. I'm all in on him.
Sweet. Love to hear it. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I'd take him as my ace. And then, but yeah, so he's being taken right around where deGrom's taken. Like, I'm taking Aaron Nola all day. Give me the guy that I can count on to be on the mound and give me actual production. So, all right, Clay, let's move on to Brandon Woodruff now too, because Woodruff is somewhat of a popular pick as of late. Like, I feel like I'm seeing a lot of people target him lately. And there's no reason not to target him.
I know.
Right?
I love him.
Like, 2021 was an amazing season for him. Threw 180 innings, which was a career high, 2.56 ERA. Expected stats were all there. Last year, dealt with a few like minor injuries, through 153 innings, 3.05 ERA. Expected numbers were right around that. Struck out a bunch of batters again. Like, going into 2023, that is, age 30 season, like, I'm expecting a step forward from him. Very smart pitcher, has a full arsenal. I'm all on board the Brandon Woodruff train.
I love him. He's just consistent as hell. Like, what he's gonna put up. You can almost write it in ink. Like, he's just gonna put up a solid ERA. Enough strikeouts to obviously be in the top 40-ish ADP, and all of his pitches grayed out as positive. Like, there's just nothing not to like about him. A safe pick in my bet, in my opinion, and somebody who I'm definitely going to target. And he won't be my first pitcher that I'm going to target. I'm not going to wait that long, but he's definitely somebody who's on my board.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think that Brandon Woodruff is like the perfect guy to grab as a potential ace option. If you grab like 3 hitters at the beginning of the draft. All right, let's move on to Carlos Rodon, who's moving teams, going from San Fran over to the lovely confines of Yankee Stadium. Got a huge contract in this offseason, 6 years, $162 million. He's coming off of 2 just insanely good seasons. He had a 2.37 ERA in 2021, 132 innings pitched in that season. And then what did he do? Backed it up last year. 178 innings pitched, 2.88 ERA. His 2.25 FIP was, I believe, the lowest in baseball, maybe the second lowest. Struck out almost 12 per 9. Like, he was truly dominant last year. I got to see him live in July. I went to a Padres Giants game, and I think it was on my birthday, which was even cooler. Seeing Rodon in person, you really get to witness, one, this guy's not going to have a problem with the pitch clock because he literally gets the ball back and he's already foot on the rubber, like practically in his windup again. He's right at you, and that's what makes him so scary. He's not afraid to go at hitters. So he's scary. Do you think I think he can back it up again? I'm not staying away. I'm not scared about any injuries. Like, Carlos Rodon, fire him up for me.
Me too. I'm all in. We are agreeing on everything today, Colby. I love it.
I mean, we're talking about a lot of good pitchers here.
Yeah, so. And he's a guy, a lot of people, after his stint with the White Sox and getting non-tendered and whatnot, coming back, big year, like, there's all these questions about him, and I think he's eliminated those at this point, and he's earned through his success the right to just be considered one of the top pitchers in baseball without these asterisks. And I don't see any reason why he can't repeat.
Yeah, I don't see one either. We're ending this episode talking about two dominant lefties that I absolutely love. Like I love Carlos Rodon and I love Shane McClanahan. And
That's your guy.
I might love Shane McClanahan more than I love Rodon. They're both going around the same draft price. But McClanahan, to me, like this is the year for him where he really takes that next leap. Like 2021 came up as a rookie, made 25 starts, was really had moments where you're like, wow, this dude throws 100 from the left side with, a really good changeup, a really good curveball. Like he's a complete pitcher, but he was young still at that point. He was inexperienced. Then last year, 28 starts, 166 innings pitched, which was the big concern for me. I was like, I don't know if this guy can go to 160, 180 innings. And that's the big reason I like him this year is I think he can go from 166. I think he can go 185 this year. I'm really expecting that because he can go deep into games. And yeah, Clay, as I mentioned, like such a complete pitcher, attacks you with fastball that, averages 96, 97. He's up to 100 with it. The interesting thing to note about McClanahan pitch usage wise last year is he started using his changeup a lot more as his as his first secondary. So fastball and then it's changeup and then curveball and stop throwing the slider as much. The slider got beat up in 2021 a bit. And so I really liked that change. And the changeup was unbelievable last season, Clay. A 145 batting average against. Nobody could hit it for a home run. Only one home run given up against that pitch. And McClanahan, that was one issue for him and has been for his entire career, was giving up long balls, but a 50% ground ball rate guy too. So like across the board, just ridiculous numbers. And I'm expecting him to take that leap this year to being like a top, 6-7 guy in the league.
He improved from year 1 to year 2. What we all hope to see, right? That's sign number 1 in a young pitcher. Do you have a sophomore slump or can you take a next step? Year 3 is that big year where it's kind of like, all right, now let's see just how high we can think your ceiling can get to. And what I love about him is he's confident enough. And we see with a lot of young pitchers, their put out pitch is kind of like the same pitch or maybe 2 pitches. Like he can strike you out with any of those pitches and he uses them all in that manner. It's not just, oh, I got 2 strikes, I got to go to my fastball here. Like he can throw any of them at you and strike you out. And I just love that from him.
Yeah, he throws every one of his pitches more than 15% of the time, which is cool to see because sometimes you see guys that have they might have 2 extra pitches at the back of their repertoire, but like they're only throwing them like 3 to 5%. Like they're not actual pitches they're really using. You have to expect anything with Shane McClanahan. And I almost don't think about him as a young pitcher. Like he already to me is almost a veteran in my eyes. Like he, again, attacks batters, does not walk anybody. McClanahan is a guy, like I mentioned Woodruff, I'm confident, like if he's starting pitcher 1, like I would even be confident enough waiting till McClanahan, give me him, and then I'm set. But McClanahan out of this top 10, like that's a guy I'm really, really targeting at price. That's the top 10. We're going to move on to 11 through 20 next episode. You got anything else, Clay? Any last?
That's all that I got. I mean, there's still a lot of really good pitchers to get to. So, we didn't even talk about Dylan Cease, Justin Verlander. There's some big time names on this list.
Scherzer, like Shane Bieber, Urias. We got a lot of good pitchers to talk about. And even like the crazy thing is we're going to get through the top 20 and it's going to be like, we didn't talk about anybody yet.
Yeah.
So sleepers next week. That's what we're really excited for. We'll catch you next episode, Just Fantasy Baseball. That's the top 10 starting pitchers for fantasy baseball in 2023. Adios.